The lost generation. Now, what does that mean? World War I was an unprecedented conflict that resulted in an entire generation of young Americans feeling aimless. The traditional values they were taught growing up were brought into question by the horrors of wartime. They lacked drive, became reckless, were self-destructive, and shifted more toward pursuing materialism rather than abstract ideas. They were preceded by a conservative world that was rooted in faith and ideal, but succeeded by the greatest generation, sandwiched between two great time periods and suffering while the other two thrived. Now, what does this have anything to do with boxing? Simple, the parallel. It seems that periods of stability are always immediately followed by chaos, in world affairs and in boxing. Around 70 years after the inception of the Lost Generation, an entire generation of heavyweight boxers would also receive this label, regarded as aimless, reckless, and self-destructive. They were preceded by the golden age of heavyweights and succeeded by the silver age of heavyweights. The pattern continues, sandwiched between prosperity. The lost generation of heavyweights. Now, what does that mean? It actually takes on multiple meanings: wasted talent, underrated exploits, and tragic endings. This era isn't to be covered in the usual style of a chronological super documentary, as is the norm on BoxingPedia, at least not yet anyway, but rather in a series of short retrospectives. The 10-year span of 1978, when Leon Spinks was stripped of the undisputed championship after dethroning Muhammad Ali, to 1988, when Mike Tyson finished off the remnants of the era by squashing Larry Holmes and Michael Spinks, is seen as a dark and forgettable age. Now, we've got a lot to cover, from the void left by Muhammad Ali, to the disdain for Larry Holmes, to the various champions caused by growing political affairs in the sport, to Don King's iron grip on boxing, to the rise of two new sanctioning bodies, to the division being overshadowed by the Fab Five rivalries, to the sport-wide changes in rules and regulation, to the heavyweight unification tournament, to the rise and fall of Iron Mike, and to the fates of the would-be greats who slipped between the cracks. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Lost Generation. We'll start by addressing the shadow that Muhammad Ali left on the sport as a whole, and how impossibly unfair this was, in particular, for the great Larry Holmes.